I'm going with a big old Wojciech Szczesny for Poland.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but wait, just wait. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Social Media Derby. We've got a great little episode or segment coming up today where we're going to do something for the international break specifically. We know, all of you footy fans probably are hating it just as much as we are, so we've got something good in store for you. But before we get into that and just talking about some of the latest news from the international break around the two teams, I'll obviously say for those of you watching us on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel if you can, like the video, share it, comment down below if you've got any questions or if you want to talk about any of the things we go into. And for those of you that are listening on Spotify, Apple, or any other podcasting platform, please follow and give us a 5-star review if you can. We really appreciate it. Obviously, we're in an early stage here trying to build up the platform. So if you can get involved, that would be great. We've seen some great engagement recently and some tasty little comments. So keep them coming. We're loving them so far. So Ant, how are you doing, mate? Are you doing well? Are you as bored as I am having to watch these bloody internationals?
Yeah, I haven't watched any of them, I have to be honest. I've watched a couple of clips on social. Obviously, all the banter around Kai Havertz at left back's probably quite funny. But nah, it's been absolutely boring.
So you didn't watch France slap Gibraltar 14-0, right?
Come on. Who's going to watch that? You know what? I have to get my angry uncle vibes out now, yeah? The amount of I've seen online after Kylian Mbappe scored a hat-trick against Gibraltar has been absolutely unbelievable. Like, all of these people out here saying, he's amazing, he's spectacular. How could I even compare him to Haaland? They're playing Gibraltar, man. These guys are like dog walkers and butchers and taxi drivers. How can we say Kylian Mbappe, killy, go that crazy on him against that? Like, come on, bro. The World Cup gas, I get it, but Gibraltar, let's chill out.
If you're scoring bloody 20 goals against a team and you get a hat trick, it's not that bad. Right? You're not doing that well, mate. Like,
come on,
you got to be doing it against better opposition than that to be. It's like if you're bang Luton 1-0, you can't be screaming like that.
Shut up, you dirty bastard. Nah, but honestly, this international football malarkey, unless it's a World Cup, unless it's a Euros or a Copa America, or even Cup of Nations, African Cup of Nations or Asian Cup, I'd watch that. But I'm not watching these fucking matches that we've had on this weekend. Like, it's been atrocious. But
yeah. I thought I saw there was a tasty match between, I think it was Argentina and Uruguay that looked like it was where Ugarte was calling out the ball, which that I tune into because that was actually relatively competitive. But seeing England play against Malta and France against Gibraltar, come on, man. I can go and watch like Sunday League football if I have to. Like, what are we doing here, lads?
Exactly. Enfield, my local Enfield town is going to be a more riveting match than that. I don't want to watch that. But you're right, man. The South American qualifying phase is probably the only one that's actually good viewing because you've got some right tasty teams going against each other. And I think both Argentina and Brazil lost this past couple of days. Argentina lost at home to Uruguay. That was a shock. Even Darwin Noodle scored, madness. And then Brazil lost away in Colombia, and Luis Diaz, as much as I hate the Scousers, 2 goals. He was moving like prime. He was moving like prime Sadio Mane, like a couple of headers, I think it was. Crazy.
Yeah, and the clip of his dad going nuts in the crowd, that was brought a tear to my eye.
It was some emotion. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Martinelli got a goal, didn't he? I think he
did.
A very quick one as well. So I'm all for that. Get me a couple more of those, mate. And
but Gabriel, Gabriel
right.
Magalhaes, he was shocking in that game. So it was swings and roundabouts because Martinelli was good, but the other Gabriel was not good.
How dare you? I like seeing Endrick as well. He looks like he's going to be a tasty player. He's built like an absolute brick house for somebody who's 16, by the way. Like, he's got calves like bloody Sherdan Shaqiri out here, man. One's just on different levels out here.
Yeah, he's a beast, absolute beast. Do you see that viral video where Gabriel absolutely chucked him?
Just
Though I was like,
bodied it.
wow.
Yes, that's what Magalhaes is for, man. Come on.
Well, where was he when Joe Linton was doing that to him, though? Huh?
Again, he's been ridden like a jet ski. What are you supposed to do? He hasn't got bloody eyes on the back of his head. I'm with Souness.
Right.
I stand with Souness for once in my life.
I played the game. Let's get on to
the game.
Let's talk about the previews then, lad. Let's do
All
it.
right. Let's get into the previews. Thank God football will be back next weekend. I'm not sure how riveting it will be if everyone's coming off of internationals like 3 days before it. But we have got a couple of good games. We've got Man United away at Everton, the team now that has 4 points. Man City soon come. How are you feeling about that match? Are you looking forward to all the woos that are going to be going on in the crowd, or?
Oh man, I'm actually not looking forward to it. Even though, as much as we've hammered Everton on this pod, and I've said, and I will say, they are absolutely shit. This is the worst timing. Why are we playing them after they got 10 points taken off them? They're going to be absolutely livid. Yeah. That Scouse crowd is going to be absolutely losing their mind. I wouldn't be shocked if you saw the bloody blue mist everywhere, and them throwing throwing tin cans at our bloody bus and all that kind of stuff. Like, they're going to be up for it. So I wouldn't say I feel like they're going to batter us, because as much as poor as we've been, Everton, like I said, are not a great team. But they've actually been doing pretty decently recently, and I think their 10-point deduction is. I think they actually still will be safe, just because the other 3 teams that got promoted are so rubbish. But I think it's not going to be a good game, like, for the neutral to watch. Let's put it this way: I don't think there'll be any beautiful football on display, but I think it'll be a tight game. We generally do pretty well against Everton, though. In the last few years, we've generally managed to get wins at Goodison Park and wins at Old Trafford against them. So I expect us to win, but I think it will be a really tight game, and I wouldn't be shocked if we drew. And we've got one eye on the midweek against Galatasaray for the Champions League. Like, that's something that I think, if we were ever going to prioritize games, I think we'd probably be looking towards that more. So I wouldn't be surprised if we drop points in this game. But
have you picked up any injuries, or have you got anyone coming back from injury for this game? Because I did see some shouts about Onana maybe being a little bit iffy, but you just were saying offline that it looks like he'll be all right.
Yeah, so I think Onana came off injured in the African World Cup qualifiers, or is it AFCON qualifiers? I've forgotten. He came off at the 80th minute, and there was talk of a shoulder injury, but apparently I've seen stuff online saying it's not too serious, and he should be in line to still play in the United games coming up. So that's not a big worry. Obviously, we've got Højlund out. We've got Eriksen out from the last game that we had. So that's not fantastic. You'll probably see Anthony Martial start up front now, with Garnacho and Rashford either side. I don't believe we've got anyone coming back from our injury list. I think we've still got Martinez out. Johnny Evans is still out. All of our left backs are out except I think Reguilon. Reguilon, I think, is available, but yeah. I think Wan-Bissaka and Dalot are still there. So yeah, obviously Casemiro's out. So you'll probably see, with Casemiro and Eriksen out, you'll probably see Amrabat and McTominay, I reckon. Amrabat will come in for them. So yeah, it won't be an inspiring team, but I still expect us to eke out a narrow victory. Something akin to the 1-0 win at Luton or the 1-0 win at Fulham. Yeah. Wouldn't be surprised if it was a lastminute.com like the Fulham one. But I expect us to get a victory, but it's not a good time to play Everton. When the Premier League's just come down and given them 10-point deduction for one charge, it's basically a new manager bounce. It's like remember when the 115 charges got dropped on Pep, and then I think it was that same weekend you guys played them at the Emirates and they beat you 3-1. Yeah, and they didn't play amazing, but it kind of turned their form around.
Poking the beast,
around. Yeah. So I don't think Everton or Man City, let's put it this way, but I think they can
make it difficult for you.
Yeah,
And the
it'll
crowd will
be
definitely make it difficult for you.
yeah. I think they'll be all riled up. But I'm going to go positive. I'm going to go with the good vibes, and I'm going to say United 2-1.
All
What do you
right.
think, though?
Um, I mean, it just adds to the whole like idea that Liverpool is a separate part of the UK, and you know they love that argument, obviously, because they've had some things done to them in the past that have not been very nice in terms of the government. But I think that this adds to that kind of fuel. Like they've just about got themselves safe. It looks like they're doing well. It looks like Daesh is doing well, and then what do you know? The Premier League come and slap them with a -10. So I
Mm.
think that big bounce will get them a win. I think they're going to beat you 2-1.
Wow.
And I think it's going to be I reckon it'll be a really physical game as well, because them players aren't going to be loving this fact either. And they've already got a team full of brick houses. So, I mean, outside of Nottingham Forest, they are probably the ones that you don't want to get too angry, because that can start getting into a bit of a brawl. So yeah, I could see them doing that. I don't know if Calvert-Lewin is available. If he is, which is very rare, but if he is, he has looked dangerous whenever he's been able to actually play. So you never know. But I think obviously with your defense of Maguire, maybe that makes better for makes you guys more suitable for a physical game, because you've got old slabbers in there to get his head on everything. So I reckon they might beat you though. I'm going to go for a
You're going
2-1
2-1, yeah?
Everton win. Yeah.
All right.
But let's move on to the Arsenal game. Obviously, we've got Brentford away. Brentford haven't been doing all that well this season, but as we've kind of discussed, Arsenal haven't been playing the best this season either. I'm going to say that we'll win that game, but I don't see us keeping a clean sheet. I do think that we've been, even though I think I contradict myself completely, but in the last episode I did talk about how we've conceded joint fewest goals in the league
Yeah.
so far this season. But again, I just don't see us keeping a clean sheet here. And if Gabriel Magalhaes is going to be putting in performances like he did for Brazil, then it makes me even more worried. So I'm going to go for a 2-1. I'm gonna you know what? No, I'm gonna go out a little bit. I'll go for a 3-1. I reckon we'll get 2 goals. They'll get one back, and then we'll put them to bed and move on to the next game.
Interesting. Because I actually I'm not sure which way this one can go. Because you guys defensively have been really strong, but your away form has taken a little bit of a turn.
Yeah.
Your away form was what you really were built on last season, to be honest, and this season you carried it on. But you obviously had the wobble at Newcastle, which I know was a bit of a robbery, but even then you didn't really do anything to win the match, right? I think at best you could have got a draw. So your away form, you haven't looked quite as potent away from home. So I'm actually going to go for a 1-1 draw in this game, and I think Brentford at home. We talked about it when we had Jay on, didn't we? Jay Harris from The Athletic. That Brentford at that time were looking quite shaky, and their results hadn't been fantastic. But they've actually picked up in form since that, and they've got some decent results. Obviously, went to Stamford Bridge, won there.
Yeah, but that one was I mean,
No,
Chelsea just gave them a couple of goals at the end, didn't they?
Now, I thought Brentford were good value for that. I thought they played really well in that game. Like, obviously, they are what they are, right? They're not going to play like Yoga Benito football. They play how they play,
Yeah.
but it was very effective, and they completely shut Chelsea down. And the goals they scored, like the first one that Pinnock scored, was good. So I
Pinnock
think
has been class this season as well.
yes,
I have to
yes.
say that. Yeah.
He's a very likable guy. I heard his interview afterwards, and he seemed like a real G. So big up Ethan Pinnock. But yeah, I think they'll cause you problems. And I always look at these games.
Yeah,
and
cause us a couple
Mbeumo as
problems on the
well.
wings. Yeah.
I just think when you come back from international break, the big teams are a bit vulnerable. It's a bit of an equalizer because you've had all your players traveling around the world everywhere, and then they come back and everyone's a bit knackered. You've obviously got a bunch of Brazilian players and stuff like that. And, we've got some African players and stuff. So yeah, I think you guys will draw, but I wouldn't be shocked if you won because you beat them earlier in the season, right? In the Carabao Cup. So it's not impossible for you guys to get a win there. But Brentford's a hard place to go. And what is it? I think it's
most of them will be well rested as well, won't they?
yeah. I think it's a late
It's a
kickoff
5:30. It's a 5:30
Yeah.
kickoff on the Saturday. Yeah, it's going to
So
be a
that means it's
televised
on.
game.
Yeah, it's going to be on Sky Saturday night football. Gary Neville's going to be
God,
there.
I'm going to have to listen to Gary Neville commentate our game again.
So I reckon it's going to be the atmosphere. They've built it up to try and make it a bit of a banana peel game for you guys. So,
But I mean, the only thing I'll say about that is like Newcastle away is a tough game because you're going up to the Geordies, man. Brentford. I mean, like, yeah, obviously it's going to be a small stadium, so it's going to be quite like packed in and all that. But our fans will be not having to travel very long. They're going to be up for it. I reckon we'll put a good showing out, and the Ashburton Army will be out in full force for this game. Come on, Ashburton Army, help us, man. Please do something.
You need to leave with something. Yeah, let's see, man.
Leaving here with something. Exactly.
Let's see, man. Let's see how it goes. But I'm going to be a bit more negative on you and say I don't think you'll lose, but I think it will be a draw, and I don't think that's the worst result because you say what you say about Brentford, but it's not an easy place to go, man. You've seen
no, of course.
There
it's just
get
not.
rattled.
It's not a Newcastle though. That's just my point. It's not St James's Park. But in saying that, yeah, Brentford are a good team. They're hard to break down. I've noticed of course, every now and then you can get one past them, but like Ethan Pinnock, like I said, has been he's been a brick wall this season so far. And on the other side of things, like Jensen, they've got some players with a bit of tech, and Wemo is tasty, good dribbler of the ball. So I think they can do something. Obviously, they still haven't got Tony, so that helps a little bit because he used to cause us some nightmares. But let's just hope on this note that the PGMOL don't do us over again against Brentford. So I'm hoping that they remember the fixtures that we played against them last year, and that they'll actually be on job and do a good job in that game. But here's to praying, because it's been a rare occurrence so far this season to see them do a good job. But anyway, let's move on to our special segment for the week. So obviously, with it being the International Week, we wanted to do something a little special here. So we have got what we're going to call the Arsenal and Man United International 11. So obviously, with me being the Arsenal fan, I'm going to be making an all-time Arsenal team. Antony's going to be making an all-time Man United team, but there's a caveat in that we are only allowed to use one player from each international, so each country essentially. We're choosing our own formation. So Antony's gone for, I believe, a 4-4-2. I'm going for a 4-3-3, so I can toss it a little bit. But it was a real tricky one. I mean, I don't know about you, Ant, but I have been, it's been an absolute struggle for me over the last couple of days trying to figure out what this team looks like. How about you?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, man. We've both Arsenal and United have like a core of their like winning teams have come from certain nations. You've had a lot of class French players. We've had a lot of class British players from England and Ireland. So it's a real tough ask. And I think another thing, just to caveat it with, we say all the time, but it's players that we've seen. Players that we've seen in our lifetime. We're
not talking black and white TV out here.
We're not pulling out bloody George Best and Dennis Law and all these lot, because respectfully, we never get to see them play. So
exactly.
It was.
We're going to be talking Premier League era, right? We're talking Premier League era, no Division 1, I don't think. Right?
No.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, let's get into it. As the gentleman I am, I will let you go first. And as I said, Antony's going for a 4-4-2. So we'll start with the goalkeeper. Who have you gone for in that goalkeeping position, mate?
So some people would think it's a bit of a tap in, because I guess one of our goalies in the Premier League era gets a lot of shouts for maybe the best goalie in the Premier League era ever, not only for United. But I would say it was, of course, it was Tim Howard actually. But it was a tough one for me because I honestly believe we've had two world-class goalies in this era, and one of them gets kind of overlooked a little bit, and that would be Edwin van der Sar, and he's honestly, I think he's class, but I don't think I can go with him just because we've had some class Dutch players, and it's more of that competition with the other Dutch players and not being able to get some of the other world-class Dutch players that we've had in the team. So I've gone with the obvious one, the tap-in. I've gone Peter Schmeichel, Denmark, the greatest goalie of the Premier League era. I don't want to hear crap from Liverpool fans about Alisson. I don't want to hear Chelsea
Not yet,
fans
at
chucking
least.
him.
Not yet.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I don't want to hear Chelsea fans with Peter Cech. And Peter Cech is probably the closest.
He's the closest one, though. He's got to be
Yeah,
the closest one.
Yeah, Peter Cech is. I reckon you could have a semi-argument around Peter Cech, but there's some things that Peter Cech never achieved. Peter Schmeichel won, he won all the Prems that Peter Cech won, but he won a treble, and he was pivotal in that run to the treble. Like, he saved the Dennis Bergkamp penalty in the semi-final replay against Arsenal. If we'd have lost that, if we'd have conceded that penalty, we would have lost that game because we were down to 10 men from that point. So he was huge, and he had numerous saves in the Premier League run-in as well that helped us win the league. He had numerous saves in the Champions League, which helped us win the Champions League. And so I just think Peter Schmeichel, he's an undeniable. We talked about it off camera. There are a few players that both of our teams had that were undeniably the best player in their position in the world at some point. And I honestly believe Peter Schmeichel was one of those players for Man United. So yeah, Peter Schmeichel in goal. The only blemish on his career and stuff was obviously he had the incidents with Ian Wright around the racism and stuff. Which if he did,
and also getting knocked out by Roy Keane, that one's a funny one as well.
Well, that's less of a blemish and more of a it could happen to any of us.
Yeah.
But the Ian Wright stuff, if that is true, which everyone has kind of acknowledged it was true, he's obviously a bit of a for doing that, and he did play for City, so he's a bit of a C word for that as well. But he's going to be my goalie, Peter Schmeichel, Denmark. What about you, John? Who's your goalie?
All right, so for all the Arsenal fans out there, don't judge me because this is really hard. All right, so I mean, there's not that many keepers to choose from because we haven't had that many humdingers really. And maybe I'm just not giving Seaman enough credit here, but it was between a couple of people. I mean, it was Jens Lehmann, it was David Seaman. And that was really it. Like after that, we started to get into some dangerous territories of talking about like Bernd Leno and
Manuel Almunia, come on,
Chesney, Almunia, and them kind of lot. So I mean, in the Premier League area, we've had some absolute stinkers. So this is going to sound ridiculous, but just remember, it's the countries. I'm going with a big old Wojciech Szczesny for Poland.
Oh my god!
Yeah, but just wait, because I could have asked this and said Petr Cech because he played for us, and then people would be like, "Oh yeah, Cech is in goal. He was good at some point in time." But really, if I go for Seaman, think about who I'm breaking at that point. I can't choose Ian Wright. I can't choose Saka. Or I can't choose any of the English players that we've had that are absolute G's. So I'm gonna have to go for old Wojciech, unfortunately. I think it will, if we look at it from a positive perspective, since he's left Arsenal, he's also been pretty good. So, you got to respect just smoking in the dressing room, smoking in the changing room. I love that. I want some shithousery in my team. So, Wojciech Szczesny, I choose you, son. Pokemon Ash Ketchum out here.
Oh, this stinks. I don't know how you picked it.
If we had started with forwards, I would be looking great right now, all right? But this is a hard one, and Arsenal fans will attest. We've had some absolutely stinky goalkeepers, all right? So if I'm going for Jens Lehmann or Wojciech Szczesny, come on, man.
You had to pick Lehmann, you bad.
No, because it gets really techie in centre-back as well. Just wait until you see my team out full. But it's
fair enough. Szczesny, oh my God. We're going to pack you out if we did.
Think about the Germans that we've had as well. Think about some of the Germans we've had. So shut it, would you?
Oh mate,
let's move on. Let's move on before. Shut up. Let's move on before you go in too hard. Do you want to start with the fullbacks, or do you want to start with the centre backs? What do you want to go for first?
Let's go right back. So I'll do my right back, and this is where you're going to get vengeance on me. I reckon you shouldn't because he was a good player, but I'm going to go for our Cristiano Ronaldo replacement at right back, and that is Antonio Valencia of Ecuador. And the reason is,
oh god,
basically the reason that you gave for Chesney in goal.
It's countries, man.
Honestly, right back, who could we obviously could add Gary Neville, but who's going to use their England spot on Gary Neville? I'm not mental, so I'm not picking him there.
Young.
Ashley Young again. I reckon Ashley Young's best performances were at left back. Actually inverting or
Could
at
be.
left wing. So probably can't say Ashley Young. Obviously, you could have chucked in Raphael, but I don't reckon he was good enough for long enough.
And that takes out
Dennis
Brazil, which is
takes out
not what you
Brazil.
want to do.
But to be honest, we haven't had that many great Brazilian players. So, I could have
So you
put
could have
Raphael
gone
there,
for
I guess,
Raphael.
there. But
Yeah.
I actually think Valencia was better for us than Raphael was at right
He was
back.
more solid for sure.
Valencia was a bit of an enigma really for us, because when he first came, he was very good at right wing. And he used to do one ball basically, didn't he? He used to absolutely ping a ball. He'd run across the byline, go on the outside, and absolutely slam a ball in the middle for Rooney or for whoever was playing up front, Berbatov or whatever. And yeah, a lot of the times it worked. A lot of the time, more than a lot of times, it didn't work. But when he actually transitioned back to right back, he had a bit of a dodgy period, I guess, at the beginning in the first couple of months. I remember he gave a back pass to Danny Welbeck one time for Welbs to score against us in the FA Cup for you lot. But other than that, I can't remember too many mistakes from him. He was a very steady, hard-working, good right back, and he developed a lot of his defensive skills as time went by. And honestly, he was built like a brick shithouse as well. We talk about brick shithouses. We've thrown that word around a lot on this episode. Valencia was actually one. Like, his thighs were two of my thighs. Like, he was wham. So yeah, I'm quite happy with him at right back, and he comes from Ecuador, and I don't think we've had any other Ecuadorian players that come anywhere near him when it comes to our team. So I'm quite comfy with him at right back. But you could say it's maybe a bit of a weakness in our team, because obviously a very good attacker winger could probably get at him. But who's your right back?
So, okay. I'm going for Lauren
from
the big old Cameroon. I mean, we haven't had. Maybe I'm overlooking some people at this point, but we haven't had like a host of like really world class right backs either. So I think I definitely wasn't going to choose a Bowie, despite the fact that I love a Bowie, but he's not getting chosen. So, and I'm not obviously going to choose anyone from current era. I'm not choosing Ben White. Give it 10 years and we'll see. But yeah, so I'll go with Lauren. I think that he was a really solid player. He was also pretty well respected in the league. He didn't get all that many plaudits from a lot of people in terms of like saying he's world class or anything else like that. And I definitely don't want to argue that he was world class like crazy levels, but he was a very solid right back to have. He defensively offered quite a lot. He was quite fearsome as well in a lot of those. I remember in a lot of the derbies that we had against you lot, he was never backing down. I don't remember him getting ripped a ton. I know that there was every now and then he would get ripped, and that was just kind of part and parcel of being in the league at the time. But for the most part, I think he was a pretty steady option to have. So I'm going to go with Lauren from Cameroon. Again, Cameroon, I have to go for a country that we haven't had a ton of players from as well. So I think Lauren really fits the bill there.
Yeah. I mean, Cameroon, Lauren, Alex Song, you've only had a couple.
I'm not choosing Alex Song either. Yeah, there's no chance he's getting in my team.
Yeah, Lauren, he was an invincible, wasn't he? I mean, he was a good player. He was a good player. I don't think he was ever like the Prem's best right back, but he was in the conversation, top 5 right backs in the league, basically throughout his time there, which is great, man. I think that's a good shout. I used to hate him as a player because he used to always nibble at our wingers whenever we used to play us.
He was tasty. But, yeah.
I think he was a good player. So yeah.
All right, let's get on to centre backs now then. So I think let's go ahead and choose both our centre backs at the same time so we can see what this pairing is really looking like. So who have you gone for your 2 centre backs? You've got some humdingers to choose from, I will say that. So it'll be interesting to see who you've gone with.
Yeah, so I've gone for, like, if we did a FIFA card, 100 aggression, 100 tackling, 100 heading, like just absolute monsters. And I've gone for Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans. Yeah, no, I've gone for Nemanja Vidic, Serbia's finest, and Jaap Stam. That's why I've played my Netherlands card. And to be honest, I think those two are probably in you could argue they're in the top 5 Man U centre backs of the Premier League era. You probably chuck Rio Ferdinand in there.
Yeah.
You could probably chuck Bruce and Pallister in there, and that's probably your top 5, to be honest, centre backs of the Premier League era. So yeah, like, what more do I need to say? Really, he was an unbelievable defender, and I still think one of Fergie's biggest mistakes ever was selling him. I understand there was some stuff around squad harmony, the fact he talked badly about the Neville brothers in his book. I know there's some excuse going out there that Sir Alex thought he wouldn't be the same player after his injury, but I think he was just covering his tracks. I think it was because he kind of badmouthed the Nevilles and there was going to be some trouble with the squad harmony afterwards. But I still think that's one of Fergie's biggest mistakes ever. I have to be honest. I don't think we just couldn't win the title for the next couple of seasons after we sold him. We brought in, Laurent Blanc and a few other midfield defenders, and they just didn't cut the mustard. So I think Jaap Stam, I don't think you could say too much, right? You recognise he was unbelievable.
Yeah, he was class. And I think Vidic in that partnership as well is really understated. Like, I know I've heard some conversations going around like Vidic or Terry, and I'm taking Vidic every day of the week, mate. So I think Vidic is really underrated as just his impact on your team. He was the enforcer of that team as well. Like, next to Rio Ferdinand, who was the Rolls Royce at the time, having Vidic next to him was a class centre back pairing. There's not a lot of flair in that in your 3 defenders that you've chosen so far, but I do feel like you're creating a team that is pretty hard to get anywhere near, because if you do, you just get an elbowed, headbutted, or something similar. So
our defenders
it's a fearsome defense so far.
Yeah, our defense is sticking it on you regardless, putting heads on, like, everything, absolutely clattering people. I'm liking it. It's the aggression that I want. So who are you going for your centre backs? Sender, Ross, and Giroud. Yeah.
So this is a tough one, man. I don't mean to be harsh to Arsenal at all, but it's a really difficult one. We've had some really good centre backs, but we've also had some stinkers. We had Tony Adams, Martin Keown, and Sol Campbell. We've had a lot of good centre backs, and they're all bloody English. So it's really difficult for me to have to choose someone. And there's someone in my team that is English that I can't ignore. And we were talking about before, like, players that are like undisputedly the best in their position at the time. So I can't use my England pick, unfortunately, on either of my centre backs. So I'm going for big Colo. I'm going for big Colo Toure from Ivory Coast as my first centre back. And unfortunately, I'm definitely not choosing Giroud. I'm not choosing Senderos. I'm not choosing Koscielny. I'm not choosing
Oleg Luzhny.
I'm not choosing Luzhny. I'm not choosing any of them, man. I would love to have put Saliba in there. I know it's an early shout, but I feel like Prisons at the moment would be like, oh, yeah, that looks tasty. But I'm going to have to go with a man that's still at the club today, Big Mertesacker. The man that turned, and it took him about 20 minutes to turn one way and then 20 minutes to turn back the other way. But people forget that there was a period where he was at the team where he was good. He wasn't as slow as he ended up being, and he was decent at reading the game. He was about 8 foot tall. A lot of people will have bad memories of him. I get that, and I'm probably going to get roasted. But at the same time, there was a couple of years where he was pretty good, and he was a pretty solid centre back. And as you see the rest of my team build, you will understand why I've had to do that. All right, so big Per Mertesacker and Colo as my centre back pairings. From looking at the 2 teams so far, I mean, there's a clear winner here, but. But I'll get that. I'll get my get back. Don't worry about that.
You ain't leaving with nothing. From these 4, you're not leaving with anything. You are struggling, man. Struggle. I can see it in your face. You're absolutely dying.
My next pick's a humdinger, so you can
your left back's gonna put my one to shame.
I hope so, yeah.
But yeah, my left back. It's hard out here because I'd probably say the best left back in our Premier League history is Dennis Irwin, but I can't pick Dennis Irwin. Unfortunately, he's Irish. Yeah, and give me a break. Give me a break.
What is that accent?
It's your job. I obviously have to pick one player for Ireland, so I'm not going to pick Dennis Irwin. Patrice Evra was another good shout, but we've had a few legendary French players, and at least one that is unfortunately making it impossible for me to pick Patrice. But I do love this game. But I'm going to pick Gabriel Heinze at left back.
Going for
Argentina.
Ainsley. Go on. Okay, fair enough. I
Argentina.
forgot about
I'm
him.
going to completely ignore that he tried to force a move out and go to Liverpool. I have to, because like
Shameless.
if I saw him in person, honestly, I might swing on him, because
He'd batter you. He'd
that
batter
really
you.
no chance. He's about 4 foot tall, so there's no way. But as a player, I actually think he was really good for us, and he played left centre back. He played left back. He had that dog in him, and he wasn't the most physical. I don't think he's probably the weakest out of my back four, but he stuck it on people. He had that Argentinian fire in him,
Yeah.
and you got to have a bit of that in your team. So I've gone real South American like bulls at fullback, and I'm going to go for Gabriel Heinze at left back.
You are
But yeah,
basically just Sean Dyche in this, aren't you? You are
mate,
building. You
mate,
are Sam
no,
Allardyce in the hell out of
no,
this
no,
one, aren't you?
no, no, no. You have to put some respect on my back four. Yeah, all of those guys could play with the ball at their feet. Even Vidic. People unfairly say Vidic couldn't do that, but he did. If you watch back and if you go back and remember, Vidic was decent with the ball at his feet. He's probably the weakest out of the four, but Stam was really good with the ball at his feet. Valencia was good with the ball at his feet, and Heinze was a bit, when he played centre back, he was more of the ball player. So I actually think they'll be okay. But you're right. It is like FIFA card. It would be 100% aggression, 100% like power, strength. That's what I've gone for
Man's
in my
creating
back.
like
My back
the
four.
longest yard FC out here. He's just
Yeah,
gone
yeah.
for a bunch of offensive linemen out here. God have mercy.
Straight Avengers.
He's making an NFL team. All right, all right. I like it though, because that is a weird shout. I mean, you've had some good left backs. I'm surprised you didn't go with old Fabio, mate. But
No chance.
I'll go on to my left back, who's putting yours to absolute shame. I think, as we were talking about before, he was undoubtedly the best left back in the Premier League, and definitely, in my mind, in with a shout of being the best left back in the world for a large part of his career at the Arsenal. So I think we're gonna ignore some personality trait problems that he had. We're gonna ignore the fact that he went to Chelsea. We're gonna ignore a lot of the things that are gonna have to be ignored for me to get him in my team. And we're gonna go with the big Ashley Cole. He's obviously nuts for what he did, but he had John Locke, mate. Every time old Cristiano came up against him, it was just straight lock up season. Nah. So Ashley Cole, come on down. You're in my 11. Absolute class fullbacks that I've got in there. Can't say much about the centre backs, or the goalkeeper, but so far,
not treble winners, but invincibles. Ashley Cole, Lauren. That season they were top tier.
Was Colo not part of that?
No, Torres an invincible as well. Yeah, he was. Yeah. So it's that's a really good. Considering the country requirements for this special segment, I think that's you've done well. I'd only say the goalie, but you've obviously done it to try and get Mertesacker in there. But no, Ashley Cole, world class. He was definitely the best left back in the world for a good chunk of his career when he was at his peak. Probably the only player that I remember that could give Ronaldo a good game and came out on top quite a few times. I do think it gets overstated a bit. Like, it was a good battle. It wasn't. I don't think one had the other on lock. I think they were almost 50-50, which is a good enough, to be honest, against Ronaldo. It's like that.
Winner, so yeah.
It's like it's one of the greatest players ever of all time, and it's kind of like it's not as bad as but it's comparable to that Fernando Torres had Vidic on lock stat that I always see get rolled out, which is absolute because he scored 3 goals against us in 15 games. And suddenly he had Vidic on lock because he got him sent off one time. Like, chill out. But the Ashley Cole one is valid. I think if you ask Ronaldo who's his toughest ever opponent, he would say Ashley Cole without even thinking, because Ashley had everything, man. He was genuinely. England had a lot of top tier players at the time, but even with Scholes, Gerrard, Lampard, I don't think you could say they were the world's best player in their position. And that time, Ashley Cole was the world's best left back. People say Roberto Carlos and all that kind of stuff, and I love Carlos for the vibes and the memories, but Ashley Cole was a better left back than Roberto Carlos. Like, it might not sound like it because he's not got a special fancy foreign name, but He was world class. He was, yeah. I can't argue with that. That one was a no brainer. You had to pick him. Should we go midfield then?
Let's
Let's
go
go centre
midfield.
midfield.
So yeah, we'll go centre mid. So you're going to pick two, right? So do you want to let's go one at a time because I think we need to
Yeah,
put some respect on some of these centre mids names. So who have you got as your centre mid, the first of your centre mid pairing?
Beering.
Peering.
You put
Peering, man.
you put the accent on for me. But no, I'm gonna pick probably Man United's greatest ever midfielder of the Premier League era. And I wouldn't say it purely on talent, because I'd say probably you could argue Paul Scholes was a more talented midfielder. But just as an all-round midfielder, the mentality, the will to win, the desire, the responsibility, man. Like when you hear him talk, and I was watching a compilation video on YouTube yesterday. Just hearing him talk about certain scenarios and talk about other people that he played with and people that he'd faced in his career. I can't see how you could play in a team with him and not be inspired. And I do think a lot of the trophies that we won during the period under Sir Alex Ferguson, you need to give him just as much credit as Fergie, because he was our on pitch manager. You could tell, right? He wasn't the biggest, he wasn't the most wham wedge guy in the world, but you didn't want to go against him, and he'd swing on you for no reason because he was an absolute lunatic. But he was a great player as well. Like people forget how good he was as an actual player. He would ping balls into people's feet. He was always looking forward. He would drive the team. And I think I don't think he was ever necessarily the best player in his position in the world. But if you could say one characteristic, to describe a player and go that way, I think he probably was the most strong mentally at the world at one point. The fact that he got that team, even when he was suspended in that semi-final of the Champions League away to Juventus, over the line, when Serie A was the best league in the world, you could argue at the time, get us to the final, give us the chance to win the treble. Yeah, he's an inspiration, and I know he's a player that you love as well, even with your Arsenal bias. So
I do.
I'm going big Roy Keane, Cork City's finest, Ireland's finest, Man United's finest, number 16, Roy Keane in centre midfield. Absolute legend. I don't know what else you want to add.
Man. Put some respect on that name. No, I can't argue with that at all. As you know, as a lot of people know, he's a legend. I mean, the mentality you don't find very frequently. You definitely haven't seen anyone like that in, I guess, recent years. And he drove your team to achieve, kept those standards. And as much as, obviously it didn't end as well at United as it could have, I feel like he was a critical point to a lot of your successes. So I can't argue with that one at all. But I am going to just one up you, mate, because I've got the big man, Gilberto Silva, as my DM. Have that, put that in your pipe and smoke it. Massively underrated. No one realizes how critical he was to our team. Everyone always puts the plaudit on, on Vieira and the other players that we had at the time. But you've got to put some respect on big Gilberto Silva's name, because he was absolutely class. He did the job that he wanted to, did the job that was asked of him. He's the player that, Liverpool try and talk about Fabinho as if he is. You know what I mean? Like Gilberto Silva was the real deal. No flashy, none of that was required. And it's not what you expect from a Brazilian typically, but he was absolutely class for us. Obviously, I'm joking. He's, the arguments around Keane and Gilberto, I don't think I'm going to win those ones, but he was madly underrated. And I think Gilberto Silva would be absolutely class, having it, especially in front of a slightly dodgy centre-back pairing. Gilberto Silva would be cleaning up, man. He'd be doing what Casemiro is supposed to do. You know what I mean?
Not supposed to.
What I would say, Gilberto,
what a legend. I've got a lot of love for him. He seems like a lovely bloke as well, because he's done a bunch of comms on the BBC during the World Cup and stuff. And no, I will say, there is no conversation of Gilberto against Keane, but he was class. Another invincible and World Cup winner, 2002. He definitely walked so the likes of Casemiro could run. Because if you think about Brazil, you didn't think about a midfielder like Gilberto until he came around. Like, he was one of the first dog Brazilian midfielders that we saw. Like, before that, it was all about samba football, Yoga Bonito. Brazilian footballers were all technical demons, and they weren't about physicality and of any of that stuff. But when Gilberto came on the scene, it changed the game. Now you can talk about Fabinho, you can talk about Casemiro. They exist because of Gilberto. Like, let's be honest, they're his sons. Like, he is a class midfielder. So no, I think that's a good shout, man. For my second midfielder, this is where you might get on to me. You shouldn't, because you just need to look at yourself in the mirror, and you won't. But I'm going for my boy Park Ji-sung in midfield.
Oh, you can't do that to me. I can't.
Yes,
of
I
course,
can.
I can't pick on him. For fuck's sake. He's such a man's just straight
Come on.
Rishi Sunak in this one, isn't he? He's just straight
Ow!
up political,
Ow!
doing house of cards out here. As if I can't
No.
pick on him now, can I?
No, you can't. But he did play midfield. You can argue that.
No, of course. I would say his best position for you guys was in the center of the park, chasing down like the opposition's best player. That's what Fergie relied on him for. Yeah,
exactly. And so I know your midfielders are about to get a bit tasty, and your strikers are about to get a bit tasty, and I need Roy Keane there for the physicality to make sure he gets stuck in, but also to play those progressive passes. But I need Park Ji-sung to be in there to just help. We talked about it, in an earlier podcast that we did with, the legend that is Good Vibes John. Park Ji-sung, what was his nickname? Three Lungs or something like that? Like, he worked his off, but he was also a really tidy player. And like, I've seen stuff go out there about, I don't know if it was maybe Wayne Rooney said stuff out in the press where if he was to encourage a player, a young player right now, to look at someone as their role model and learn from about how to train, but also how to play, he would point them in Park Ji-sung's direction. And honestly, I think he's one of the most unsung players that Man United have had in the Premier League era. And I think, I don't know what reasons there are maybe for why he doesn't get the plaudits that he should, but I think Park Ji-sung is a great shout. And I think he was pivotal to that period of time when we won the Champions League, Premier League double, and we won a bunch of other trophies. I think he was just someone that you could rely on because he was good on the ball. He worked his socks off, and you knew he was going to just, do whatever you asked him tactically. He had the ability and the mentality to be able to carry it out. So yeah, Park Ji-sung is my centre midfielder.
He would go beautifully with Keane as well. Like you know that Keane would absolutely love to play alongside of him.
Salivating.
He would do exactly what Keane would ask of him. There's not a lot of creative flair coming from your team at the moment, though. Not to play any of those players down, but I mean, you're just playing. You're playing 5-yard passes all day, aren't you?
It's coming. It's coming.
But all right, fair enough. I'm gonna put a creative player in here now, and this has been a challenge for me because obviously I really want to get people like Vieira into my team, but France, man, I can't do that when there's a certain number 14 that has played for us. So I'm gonna go for Big Cesc Fabregas as my Spanish pick here. He was, again, while he is also kind of talked about with some respect, I think he's underrated massively in the whole kind of centre mid conversation, right? And I think part of the problem around that is that Fabregas played for us in a time where we weren't winning a ton of stuff, right? At least for the bulk of his time at our club. So as a result of that, obviously he had to make the move and start winning some stuff. But I think because of the lack of the team success around it, people don't put enough respect on his name. But there were points in time where he was certainly in the conversation for the best player or the best centre mid in the league, in the Premier League at that time. And I think he's definitely on that world-class level. So he's bringing all of that creative flair that I need to my team. He would, in front of Gilberto Silva, can you imagine the carnage that would come out from that team, mate? Oh, Cesc, big Cesc. I'm gonna completely ignore the fact that he went to Chelsea. Again, I have to do this a couple of times. Ashley Cole and Fabregas now, but he was absolutely world class, and I don't think you can argue with sticking him in my team.
Nah, Fabregas was good, man. Really, really good. And I remember when he broke onto the scene, I remember a couple of proper battles we had against you guys when I think he was still 16, 17,
Yeah.
and he was like one of your best players. And I remember just thinking he had that stupid rat-taily Barcelona haircut at the time. And I was like, who is this little Don? He looks like a little hobbit from bloody the Spanish part of
How dare you?
from Lord of the Rings or something like that. But nah, he was really, really good. When he came back to the Prem at Chelsea, I think you saw end product Cesc, who he was like going to model himself into going forward for the rest of his career. That deep
Yeah.
line playmaker. Honestly, I think he's top. Isn't he near the top on the assist charts in the Premier League history as well? And I just think, yeah, really, really big baller, and sometimes gets a bit overlooked when you think about some of the Spanish tech man that we had in the Premier League. David Silva
Yeah.
gets brought up, Juan Mata even gets talked about sometimes, and like the Spanish little magicians, Fabregas is up there, if not top. I'm going to say he's right there with David Silva, maybe even slightly ahead. I think he was top tier. But let's get into your other centre midfielder because that's where
All right.
formations are going to break out now. So who's your other centre midfielder?
This was a tricky one as well. So again, I've gone for countries here. So I'm going for big man Aaron Ramsey. Aaron Ramsey, the Welsh. He's the Welsh Fabregas essentially. Can you imagine the two of them together? Oh, the absolute scenes. But yeah, no, Aaron Ramsey. I think again that era where we had Wilshere, a lot of the stuff would be about Wilshere and how good he could have been and stuff like that. But people forget how good Aaron Ramsey actually was. Like he was critical to our team. I think, at the points where we were, seeing Fabregas leave and stuff like that, and there was, gaping holes in our creativity. I think Aaron Ramsey really stepped up. He had obviously difficult times with leg breaks and stuff like that, but he was class. And again, I've had to go for countries here. Couldn't go English, couldn't go French. It's a sticky one still. But I've gone for Aaron Ramsey. I think that he next to Fabregas with Gilberto Silva in behind him. Oh, show
That's a
me
good
some
midfield.
replays of that, man.
That's a
Wow.
good midfield, yeah. With Fabregas kind of just like playmaking, Ramsey, banging into the
Bombing
box,
forwards, yeah.
a bit like the little bit of that Frank Lampard just turning up at the right moment. He was a bit of a bagsman as well from
He
midfield.
was.
I can't lie. It hurts. That one hurts because you know what? Yeah, I remember Ramsey was at Cardiff, and I remember we posted a press release on our website saying we've agreed a fee with Cardiff and is subject to international clearance or some shit like that. And we basically announced that we got him. And then I remember watching, I don't think we had Sky at the time, John, so I don't remember, but I remember seeing then the news, like, I don't know if it was the same day or late or the next day, that Arsenal, in fact, snuck in there and stole a march on us and got him. And it was the most embarrassment ever because I don't think now you ever see Man United post anything until he's actually essentially signed the deal, right? Because we
Yeah,
got
until he
burnt
sat in front of
so
a
hard.
piano.
Oh god, yeah. It's because we got burnt because of that Ramsey deal. But yeah, he went on to be one of your most influential players of that period of time, that late Wenger era. Yeah, Ramsey was someone that I like. So big him up, man. And he did well for Wales as well. Him and Gareth Bale
Yep.
basically carried that Welsh team into the Euros. I think they got to a World Cup as well. So yeah, big up Ramsey, man. But let's get into my right winger then, because we're going to
Go
get
on
a little
then.
bit tasty now. Um, this one was probably one of the easiest positions to pick,
Yeah.
and I'm going to prepare for our young, what they call Gen Z, Gen whatever X, or the young lot to get a little bit outraged because they probably know this player as the gunman striker, scores everywhere. Now in Saudi, big man CR7. I'm going in my right wing. People forget, those who are probably 25 and up will remember what Ronaldo was when he played for Man United. He was a absolute tricky winger, and it was only in the
Step
last
overs.
season or two where we had that situation where basically Rooney was pushed out left so Ronaldo could go and float up front. That only happened near the end. From the day that he signed until probably the season that we won the Champions League, Ronaldo was our left or right winger. Hence why he was having all the battles with Ashley Cole on the wing. he was actually phenomenal. You know, I watched back some comps recently. I got lost in a bit of a Twitter rabbit hole. People posting Ronaldo at United comps, and people talk about him being the one who just like worked hard and had like maximized his potential and did ate right and did all these things. And Messi's the one with the the God given talent. Shut up. Ronaldo has unbelievable talent. Like he has godly talent as well. Okay, you could say Messi maybe comes out on top if you did the talent off. But Ronaldo was up there, man. The stuff he was doing was outrageous, right? Like, there's a couple of times that he put people, on all fours, just like dying out here, where he twisted them up, and then, later part of his United career, managed to add that final product on it as well. And I think Cristiano right wing, boy, I'm going to enjoy watching the battle. The theoretical battle that him and Ashley Cole are going to have, because those are good matches to watch, man.
They were.
But yeah, Cristiano Ronaldo, right wing. Now you see where the flair and the creativity starts to come in. Yeah, I've got the hard workers, so I can have the Ronaldos in this team. So that's my right
you're
wing.
basically just going to pass it to Ronaldo, and then just everyone just sit back and watch, because he's just
Ronaldo and
do
Inshallah.
a thousand step overs, twist someone up, and then smack one across the face of the goal. Yeah, I see where you're going with this. In line with that, I'm going to go for my kind of right centre forward, and I'm playing. I'm letting that top three be kind of loosey goosey. We'll let it go. I know people are going to be like, oh, he's not a winger, blah, 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 whatever. But I'm going to go for big man Alexis Sanchez. I think people need to put some respect on his name. What you guys did to him, criminal. Now everyone looks at him like, obviously, like he's nothing. But when he was at Arsenal, I can't remember how many long range shots he would have that would just go top bins and just pull us out of the mud. So he was absolutely class for us. Of course, some of the stuff that happened afterwards kind of tarnished his name a little bit, but people forget, again, hard time Arsenal, right? We went from invincibles to some real struggle times. And Alexis Sanchez was there, man. He was there. He was putting the whole team on his back at points and just slapping goals past keepers for fun. And I think people forget like just how good he was. And even to this day, he's having somewhat of a renaissance recently, hasn't he? He's been getting some of his form back in the last couple of years, but he was absolutely class for us, and I don't think anyone can argue with that. Again, he's from Chile. I don't have anyone else from Chile to talk about. It's not one of the major nations for the Arsenal team, so that will save me a little bit, I think.
Yeah, no, Alexis Sanchez pre-Piano, top tier.
Pre-Piano, exactly.
Pre-Piano, absolutely top tier. And for Arsenal, and even you could argue at Barca, he wasn't rubbish. I've seen some gas going on about how Sanchez was rubbish at Barca. Nah, he wasn't, man. I've seen a lot of performances of Alexis Sanchez at Barca where he did his job and he scored goals, but that was the Messi team. When he was there, it was still the Messi team. He was never going to be able to have as much influence on that team as you wanted. And I think you saw that by the time he came to Arsenal. He was absolutely blazing, and yeah, he was. I think there was a period where he was knocking on the door for world class. So yeah, we definitely effed him up. But I think, to be honest, near that back end before we signed him, he was already starting to go a little bit off. Yeah, he was going off the rails a little bit. So I guess you did the best deal you could, getting rid of him and letting him go to us. But yeah, good player. I'm going to go left wing. All right. This is a bit political, I guess. So
what have you done? What have you done, mate? Come on.
No. I'm going to pick the obvious. It's Ryan Giggs, Wales.
Oh, God.
One of our legends. Allegedly an absolute scumbag. And someone that I'm not going to spend loads of time on. Unfortunately, because if he wasn't guilty of all these different things and didn't have all of this cloud over his name, this could be a moment where I go on for a little bit, because his accolades and his achievements and the player that he was for us, he was special. But unfortunately, he's infamous and special for all the wrong reasons off the pitch. So I'm going to keep it short on him. But yeah, Ryan Giggs, left wing. That's my pick. So who's your left-sided forward then? Go on.
Okay, here's where it gets a bit techie. I'm going Thierry Henry. And I was debating saying like he's going to be my left winger, but I know for Arsenal he never really played in that position. It was more for kind of Monaco, and obviously things didn't really work out too well at Juventus. But I'm going to go like a left centre forward because he did used to drift out a lot to the left hand side of the pitch, and I know obviously he wasn't a left winger, but that's where I'm gaming the system a little bit. I'm playing three centre forwards, and Thierry Henry's going to be in there. And again, like we were saying before, there are a couple of players in each of these teams where you can say they were undoubtedly the best player in their position in the world at that time. And I think for Henry, it was an extended period, and people to this day still continue to talk about how good he was. And Shearer can have his goal record and whatever else, but I'm taking Thierry Henry as the best striker of the Premier League era, and he was robbed of a Ballon d'Or. Was it Pavel Nedved? What are you doing, man? Because Thierry Henry, the fact that he doesn't have a Ballon d'Or next to his name is absolutely criminal. The little flicks against, well, he did it against you lot, didn't he? Flicked it up and banged it past Barthez. He is just on absolute smoke all day, and I can't wait to see him go up against, I guess, Antonio Valencia in this case, and Vidic, because he's leaving the two of them in the dust, man.
All right, you ruined it with the last part, but I will agree. Henry is the face. You know, if they did a Premier League, if they redid the Premier League logo, and they did it kind of like, you know, as like basketball have with
like the NBA
dribbling, it would be Henry. You'd have to find a moment, something Henry did, maybe Henry knee slide or something that was pretty iconic, right? Or one of his moves, you know, where he curled it in the bottom corner. That was the Henry finish. Like, we have that finish because of Henry. So yeah, I can't add too much to it. I don't know how much joy he'd get against Vidic and Stam, but he'd definitely give him a tough day. And I think you're right. He was robbed. He should have had a Ballon d'Or. He was the Premier League's best player for, I'd say, 3 or 4 years, maybe at least. And he gave us nightmares. And if we could keep Henry quiet in an Arsenal game, then we could win. If we couldn't, which was very difficult, I don't know if it's quite, you know, the Messi levels that people talk about nowadays, but he was the Premier League's equivalent of if you need to just work on Henry, like put two people on him, concentrate on Henry. And I remember, man, I saw something that Adam McCullough was saying about how, I think he was on Filthy Fellas, and he was saying that he was that guy in the playground that would still argue that Van Nistelrooy was better than Henry because he was such a diehard Man United fan. And I have to say, I was of that mindset as well for a certain period of time. But like everyone, like, it just became a point where we couldn't lie to ourselves anymore and just argue that fact. Henry, Van Nistelrooy was an absolute gunman, but Henry was different gravy. As a player, unbelievable. And I still remember that scene. Where is he in a Bernabeu where you guys are up, and he basically takes the piss out of like world class centre backs and left backs, and like he's just jinking it over them, stepping over, slowing up, speeding up, stopping.
He's a complete striker.
Puts his hand on a corner flag. He was taking a mick. It was unbelievable. So yeah,
and I've got to mention the return when he came back to us and he slapped that goal past Leeds, and it was the classic Henry finish, coming in from the left hand side, just open up the body and just pass it past the keeper and then run up to the corner flag and knee slide. I almost cried. I literally used that in a job interview as part of a presentation I had to make about important moments. And honestly, that the scenes when he came back to us, I mean, I will do anything to get my hands on his shirt from that time, because that was like a special. I think that was like a special design that we had that year, mate. The joy that man brought to me for such a long period of his career at Arsenal. Oh,
yeah, class. And I don't think you need to worry about the left centre forward. He basically played there for Barca, so he showed he could do it. He just didn't really do it for you. But even as a striker, he did drift out there. So I think you're fine with it. I'm not going to give you too much grief with that. I think you're all right. Yeah. I'm going to go for, because obviously I've got two centre forwards. I'm going to go for one of mine now. I'm going to say he's arguably the Premier League's greatest ever English player.
I agree with this. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I agree with this. Yeah,
he's definitely Man United's greatest English player of the Premier League era. Obviously, I'm not going to, talk about Sir Bobby Charlton, rest in peace, or any of the legends that came before him. But of the Premier League era, this guy was mental. Yeah, so I still remember when we signed him. I still remember
Oh,
he scored. He bins.
Fenerbahce.
No, but
Fenerbahce came in.
before that, when he binged one top corner against David Seaman for Everton, and I was like, "Who is this
Oh
guy?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Who is
yeah.
this guy?" He was 16. He was massive. He was built like a ton of bricks. And Rio Ferdinand, I heard him talk about him saying he came into the change room with a big old hairy chest like a man. And Wayne Rooney was just, oh my god! And I still remember that period. He was England's best player at about 19 or 20. It was nuts. And I still remember that Euros when he got injured, got sent off, and like our hopes just came crashing down with him. And I think he was a combination of the different players that I think I've probably mentioned in the rest of my team. Like he had some of the grit and determination that you could see from a Roy Keane. He had the technique and ability, I would say, was level with Ronaldo, certainly at the time they were both at the club. And I think he probably was a bit unselfish
He
to a
was.
certain extent. And we talked about Ronaldo's latter part of his United career where he went up front. He only could go there because Wayne Rooney was willing to go and work like a dog on the left hand side and put his shift in. And I think he gets massively overlooked, or I don't think he's underrated, but I think people don't give him enough credit. And maybe because he has like a penchant for the grannies or the prodies or something else that we don't agree with his life decisions. But as a player, man, unbelievable player, and he had everything.
To me, I don't even like when we put the English tag on him. Like he was just take the English part out of it. Any country would absolutely love to have Wayne Rooney as one of their legends because he was class. He's like the LeBron James of football. As much as people say like Ronaldo and all this, he came in when he was 16, slapping goals past everyone, didn't care. Telling referees to F off, turning around, slapping one top corner. Like he didn't care. And as you say, he was unselfish. He would give the ball up to the right player. He let Ronaldo have his shine. He let players around him have their shine. But when it was time for him to really, when it's crunch time for him to really pull the team up by the bootstraps, he would do it. And he was a big game player. Like the overhead kicks against City, all of it. He created so many moments for you as a club. And I feel like the evolution of him as well to become kind of a deeper lying kind of playmaker type thing at the end of his career. I think a lot of respect needs to be put on Rooney's name, not only as an English player, but as one of the best players to ever play in the Premier League. And I say, as much as I love Thierry Henry, Rooney's in with a shout for that too, because Rooney was absolutely top class, unplayable to a large extent. And I think in countries outside of the UK, like outside of England, a lot of people put a lot of respect on his name. Like Rooney is, and I think will forever go down as one of the best players ever to play in the Premier League. And I think he deserves all of that.
Yeah, I definitely think he's more rated outside of England than he is in England. I don't know why. Maybe it's because
It's
he's
the
a
issue of that
scouser.
time, isn't it? It's the issue of that time and how the national team didn't achieve as much as they should have. Like, had we won like a major tournament, I think a lot more would be put, like a lot more respect would be put on his name. But I think, as English players, or as English people, we look at English players sometimes and think, oh, they weren't as good because we got to see them every week and they didn't do anything necessarily for the national team. But Rooney was carrying both United and England for a large part of his career. So
No, I hear you. I definitely think
unbelievable
so.
player.
I think maybe because he was a bit of, we talked about it earlier. Maybe there's that little bit about the whole, he's a Scouser. He
Yeah.
told the English public to f off after one of the like games for England one time. Remember on the camera he said that. So I kind of understand some of the sentiment, but at some point you got to look beyond that and just go look at the player and what he did for the country and what he did for United. Like I know Harry Kane's overtaken his England record, but the fact that he got that anyway, considering
They're
the type
different
of player
players
he
as well.
was,
Like
yeah,
Rooney was way more than just a striker. I know obviously Harry Kane is has developed a lot of other parts of his game, but Rooney was like he's in that messy mold where he's not a striker, he's not a winger, he's not a midfielder. He just does what he wants. Like he controls
yeah.
the game from wherever he is. Doesn't matter. You could put him at bloody left back like they did with Havertz. He'd dominate the match, man. It doesn't matter where you played him.
I definitely think it's a personality thing because we've also
Yeah,
seen other people in the media talk about having run-ins with him and not him and
yeah.
his agent and stuff not necessarily being the nicest people, and that probably has a big part to play as to why he doesn't get the the recognition he gets. But we're going to give it to him anyway. So he's in my team,
Big
centre
Wayne
forward.
Rooney. Come on, son.
Now, who's your centre forward then? Go on, last player in your team. Who
I'll
is
give
it
you a
going to
hint.
be?
He's from the Netherlands.
All right, I know who it is.
It's big man Dennis Bergkamp. If only we could get over his arch nemesis that was flying, he would have done so much more for our club. One of the greatest goals in history came from his unbelievable technique. Him next to Henry, with Sanchez on the other hand. He wasn't a pacey guy. You know, he didn't need any of that. He read the game well. His movement was class on the ball. You know, you guys talk about Berbatov, right? He was the original Berbatov for Arsenal, at least in that regard. Like he was the absolute tech man of that centre forward lineup. And you say that when he's got Henry next to him, and you still have to put respect on Bergkamp's name because he could do unbelievable things with a football. And again, if he could have just, I don't know, if they could have just got him on a plane, maybe just like shot him with a tranquilizer or something and just shoved him in the hold or something of a plane. Because, mate, he would have done everything for us. And I think I can't go with anybody but Bergkamp. You know, I've got obviously people like Ian Wright. You know, there's a lot of other strikers that I would love to have put in here, but you know, it's just the country thing. So I have to go with big man Bergkamp. There's no one like him. I haven't seen anyone like him apart from Berbatov. I haven't seen anyone like him since, man.
No, he is class. I have to admit. I remember World Cup '98 for Holland. Where he picked out that ball from the sky, dropped it down, flicked it round the Argentinian Don, and absolutely binsed it in the top corner with the outside of his foot. And you're like, who is this guy? What is going on? He's disgusting. And yeah, obviously the Newcastle goal. It was that Greek centre back that got absolutely sold. That Greek centre back for Newcastle is killing me now that I'm forgetting his name, but he got absolutely sold so hard. I think an underrated Bergkamp goal was the one he scored at Leicester, where he pulled out the sky again and he sold that bald-headed English defender that they had. What was his name? Matt Elliott or something like that. He sent him to the shops and then curled it in the top corner, and you thought, Dennis Bergkamp is, again, just an iconic Arsenal player, and he basically created a position. I don't think you had kind of that second striker type role before the Dennis Bergkamp, I guess, at least not in the Premier League. And yeah, I just think he was an absolute baller, man. So yeah, and I like him for your formation. Him dropping deep, Sanchez running beyond. Yeah, it would work. It would work well. All right, let's go for me then. Last pick in my team and of this 2 international 11s. You know, he's the king. The honest truth is he's the king. And king of football, king of martial arts, king of king of betting adverts, king of Ballon d'Or speeches,
king of LA. He's the king of LA. Man.
Yeah, he's the king. He's the actual king. So I saw that. All right, this is the only shade I'm going to put on Thierry Henry. Right, I saw this Puma advert, and the whole premise was the king is back or the king's returned. Shut up. I love you, Henry. You're a G.
No.
Don't you dare call yourself the king. There's one king, right? There's one king. And the king is Eric King Cantona. All right? Henry is a legend. And like we've put all the props on him. He deserves it.
I thought you were going for someone else. Okay, now I get it. All right, yeah, fair enough. I'll let you have that back. Okay, fine.
Who did you think I was going for?
I said the king of LA. I thought you was going Zlatan or something. I completely forgot that you haven't chosen someone French. All right, yeah, fair enough. I'll let you have that. Okay, yeah.
King of LA?
Because Zlatan was the king of LA. Yeah, but yeah.
No, even Zlatan.
Yeah, fair enough.
Even Zlatan, he's a G, yeah? But Zlatan needs to shut up. He's not a king. Cantona is the king. The original king. And he was probably the original kind of symbol of a foreign footballer in the Premier League. Because that period when he came to United, he was a maverick, but he was a sensational football player. And he was also, again, kind of like Rooney, I don't think he gets enough plaudits, man. And I think even in France, I think we love him more than the French do. And I don't know if it's because he's got a bit of a weird, prickly... I think
it's overshadowed by some of his characteristics as a person. I think, but
even that, like, what's wrong with his personality? The fact he kicked someone who was abusing him, big up. I would kick someone as well. He got sent off already. It wasn't like he did that in the middle of the game and then got red carded. He was going off. The Palace fans were abusing him, and he gave him a kick in the head. He deserved it.
Oh, God.
So you know what? I'm backing Cantona on that. And the one thing I will say is, I think he was at United for 5 or 6 seasons. I think it was 5. The 4 seasons, 4 of the 5 seasons, we won the Premier League, and I think it was Sir Alex Ferguson's first Premier Leagues. Yeah, the one season we didn't win, he was serving a ban for kicking that brother in the face. So that tells you the impact he had on the team. And when you hear other people, even Roy Keane's, other people, big characters that were in that team around that time, they all point to Eric being kind of like the older in the team that looked after them, but also was just an unbelievable player. And I think there's only a few players that Sir Alex Ferguson kind of allowed freedom to not like follow his rules or whatever. Cristiano Ronaldo was one of them in the latter years, I think, and Cantona was definitely another. Cantona, he didn't have the same rules. Even when he kicked my guy in the head, I heard the stories. Fergie came in the dressing room, and instead of giving him an absolute Fergie hairdryer, he just said, "Eric, you cannot be doing that, mate. You cannot be doing that, son." And he was just like, he was nice to him. And it was like, you understand why he was so important to our team. And when you see his little compilation bit, disgusting. Technique was unbelievable. Skills were unbelievable. Finishes. He was the catalyst of that Man United that I know and love, probably as a child. It's a lot of it started because of Cantona. And I think Cantona and Rooney up front. Oh, I mean, there's a high chance of red cards, but also a high chance
Not just
of
that part of your team. Like, the whole part of your team is a high chance of red cards.
yeah. Honestly, I'm definitely 100 to 1 on getting a red card with
You've
my
got
squad.
11 Sergio Ramoses in your team.
But yeah, oh my god, Cantona and Rooney up front. Oh, that's tasty. That is an absolute tasty pair up front. So yeah, I love Cantona, man. Absolute the king. And yeah, I
He was
think he
class.
rounds off our team beautifully.
He does, and I think something about him is that like we look at like superstar footballers today, but I feel like he was the one to start that as well. He was the one to come in and be like, I don't care, I'm bigger than football. And the celebrations, like Bellingham's got to put some respect on the name. This one,
Yeah,
that comes from Cantona.
that's
Son.
King Cantona, mate. Come on.
So I think he is a class player. He's definitely overlooked. I think again, it might be some of the personality traits, but maybe the length of time at the club, whatever it was. But for some reason, people just kind of, and maybe it's because you've got so many good players in your history, right? And when we look at a lot of these big teams, you do tend to have people overlooked just because you've got so many greats. But Cantona was class, man. And him next to Rooney would be fucking terrifying. If you're a defender, especially Mertesacker and Toure, God have mercy. I mean, I would be hoping that Toure and Mertesacker and then Gilberto Silva would just be like just double footing everyone, because that's the only way that someone's having to get injured in this match. Otherwise, we're not. It's not going to be a comfortable game for us. But yeah, no. I mean, if we wrap it up there, I think if we now just review. So I've got, unfortunately, Chesney as my goalkeeper, Lauren and Ashley Cole as my right and left back, with a centre back pairing of Kolo Toure and the big man Per Mertesacker, World Cup winner. DM of Gilberto Silva with Fabregas and Ramsey sitting in front of him. And then a big front three of Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, and Alexis Sanchez. And Ant, do you want to run through yours quickly?
Yeah, so my clearly better team is Peter Schmeichel in goal, Premier League's best ever goalkeeper. You got Antonio Valencia right back. Yeah, I can see some, get in the comments. Problems. I can see some comments maybe coming in there. Gabriel Heinze left back, equally, can probably see some comments coming in there. But then from then on in, it's just absolute big man G's out here. We've got Vidic, Stam, centre back. No one's wanting it with them, honestly. Aggression 100 on the FIFA stats. I've got Ronaldo right wing, probably one of the best players we've ever seen, and top 2 in our lifetimes anyway. Ryan Giggs left wing, Roy Keane, Park Ji-sung centre midfield, and then I've gone up front with Wayne Rooney and Eric the King Cantona up front. So yeah, I like my chances in a match against you. purely because of Mertesacker and Toure and Chesney. That little trio.
It's a struggle, man. I mean, well, this is where we'd love to get some of you lot involved. So first of all, predict what you think the scoreline would be between those two teams. I'll be gentle on Ant, so he'll get a couple of goals, but 10-2 is fine. Don't worry. And then also let me know. I think Ant's team maybe is agreeable, but let me know how you would have redone these teams if it were up to you, because obviously there's various ways you can do it, a lot of different ways you can take the countries, but let us know down below in the comments how you're feeling these teams and how you would change the teams to get other players in. Again, a big thank you, Ant. This was a great segment. I look forward to doing more of these in the future, but I think we'll wrap it up there. So football's back, everyone. Don't worry. It's coming soon. We don't have to watch any more Gibraltar for a while. So yeah, let's get ready for a big weekend of football, and a big thanks, Ant.
Yeah, no worries. By the way, everyone who's listening on the audio platforms, Jonty is safe. He's not been kidnapped. He's just had some lighting issues because it's in England it gets pretty dark here pretty early on. So he's gone from day to night and not had a big light
4
on.
p.m.
So don't worry, you're not going to see any signs saying he contact his mom or dad to let him know he's been kidnapped.
Yeah, Chesney's in the background with a gun to my head. Yeah, that's why he's got in the team.
No, big up. Thanks, Johns. And yeah, looking forward to this weekend of Premier League football to end this horrible international break that we've had.
Thank goodness. All right.
Big
Cheers,
up.
everyone.
Big up. Take care.